Matt Barafato here, the Purpose Hunter. I'm here today to share my story with you. And my story, some of you know parts of my story. I don't know how many of you actually know all of my story. And I think it's important for you to really know where I came from and how I got to where I am today. And I think it's going to be important for you to hear this. So I grew up in a little town, a little suburb here in the Chicagoland area. Actually, it's a north suburb called Morton Grove. And we were a middle class family. We grew up there were 7 kids in our family, so we had a really big family. Our neighborhood was awesome. We played all the sports, since there were 6 boys and a girl. We always were playing a sport, whatever was the sport that was in season. But we loved it. And I gravitated towards hockey. It was one of the things that I was passionate about. I was a good skater, I was a good athlete, and I just loved how we used to go out to the ponds and skate at the ponds, and I really fell in love with the sport. And as I fell in love with the sport, I fell in love with a specific position. I became a hockey goalie, and I was actually pretty good at being a hockey goalie. As a matter of fact, during our high school, we ended up winning our state championship, and it was really an amazing ride because no one expected us to, and it was really a cool thing. Some of my closest friendships that I have today are my teammates from back in high school. They're still my closest friends today. And it was just an interesting journey. I fell in love in high school with my high school sweetheart. Our first date was homecoming. I was actually the homecoming king, and my date happened to be the queen because I went to Notre Dame High School in Niles. I fell in love with her. I ended up, after high school, I ended up going to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I played hockey there. And I, of course, had dreams. My dream was to be in the NHL. My dream was to be a professional hockey goalie. And as I went through there, I loved the fact I went up to Madison to play hockey, Division I. And eventually it came around where it was really obvious I wasn't going to be drafted and I wasn't going to be playing in the NHL. So I figured I better get I better get my grades, I do better in my grades. I just better start studying. So anyways, I left Madison. I came to Loyola here in Chicago, and I ended up getting my degree from there. And during that time when I was at Loyola, I got engaged. And a funny part of the story, which really ties into a little bit of what my story is, I remember when I had to ask my future father-in-law, Reno Massini, I had to ask him for Laura's hand in marriage. And I was still in college. I didn't have my first job, and I'll never forget it. We had Villa Toscana Italian restaurant right in Morton Grove. And I remember him, I'm in a suit, he's in a suit, and I remember him telling, he says, "How are you going to take care of my daughter?" And I'm looking at him going, "I don't even have a job yet." I didn't say I don't know. I said, "I'm sure I'm going to get a good job. I'm sure everything's going to work out and it's going to be great." Well, as it turned out, I did get a really good job. So out of college, I was in marketing, and I ended up interviewing for sales jobs. I ended up having 3 offers, and back then, in 1981, that was a tough time because the economy was a recession, and I had 3 offers. They were all sales. And why this is an important part of my story is that I chose a job, and think about this, and you might be able to relate to this. I chose a job that was going to make me the most money because I could do the best in selling. I'll never forget when I came home from actually accepting the job, and I told my dad, I was all proud that I was going to tell him my dad was an attorney, professional, and I said, "Yeah, Dad, I got my first job, and I'm going to be selling insurance." You should have seen his face. It was almost like, "You're going to be doing what?" Well, my first job was actually selling employee benefits and working for an insurance company. And I was really good at it, because my skill set was about communicating. My skill set was about helping people to get their solution, to meeting their needs and using my solution to meet their needs. So what I learned about my sales career, so what happened, I 35 years long in the sales career. And as I went in and through this career, what I noticed each time was as soon as I started a new job, and I only had probably 4 or 5 different insurance companies that I worked with in that 35-year period. And I would start a new job and I would be just jacked and I would just be motivated. And I did really well in the sales, making all my quotas, making all my sales goals. And at the time I was a young husband, and we were just starting a new family. And so I was driven. And you know what always happened? Every single time I would make it to a certain level in sales at the career, wherever I was at. And then it plateaued and I would level out. I never became one of these superstars. And as I looked at that, I said, what was wrong with me? I was a good salesperson, but I didn't love what I did. Did you hear me in that? I didn't love what I did. I was really good at what I did, but I didn't love it. I started to not be motivated at my job. All of a sudden, every year became a chore when my quotas would higher. They would be higher, and I would make it, and I would just barely squeak by. And then as I would change from company to company, it was happening where I would change to a new insurance company. I wasn't excited about my job. And then I got a taste of something that was just a piece of something that I didn't realize was touching deep down inside of my soul. And I saw this gift that I had, which was to be a speaker, a motivational speaker. When I spoke in front of an audience, I was on fire with it. I was loving it. I was actually, you could just tell there was an enthusiasm that came forth from my presentations. I could tell that I was making an impact. And I started to pay attention to that. During that journey, as I started to do more and more speaking, I found out that, you know what, as I heard from all these other speakers that were really good and really professional, they said, if you want to be a professional speaker, you've got to write a book. And I looked at them and I just said, oh, come on, really, a book? And what was happening is I would give a talk. And as I would give a talk, these people would come up after my talk and they were all excited about what it was I was doing, as far as I was telling them about how to find their purpose in life. I was talking to them about how to search for those things that they love to do. And I was starting to see that people would come up to me, they couldn't get enough of it. But you know what? It's like I didn't have enough time to talk to everybody that came up to me. And as I began to write my book and start to throw these thoughts on paper, I did this, and I actually wrote my book, and this is part of my whole theory. My book was called Elephant Hunting. I wrote it 15 years ago. And when I published it because my brother, Mark, was in the publishing industry. And he didn't believe that I would do whatever it was going to take. He thought, oh yeah, I'll play with Matt. And you know what? And what he did was he said, Matt, you got to do this, 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 and this. And he was shocked when I did this, 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 and this. And all of a sudden, I was writing my book, and I did it, and I wrote my book in 10-minute increments, 10 minutes a day. Now, it may have taken me 7 years to write it, but I wrote it, and I accomplished something that was a huge milestone, and it was all based around a philosophy, my life philosophy, which was how, when you have a big project in front of you, like writing a book, how do you eat an elephant? Well, of course, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, just like any big project you've ever done. And I didn't realize how many people did not have a strategy, did not have a process that they could do this on. So I got a taste of something that I loved. Because when I was on stage, when I was in front of an audience, I was lit up. I couldn't get enough of it. And then there was my job. So I wasn't making enough money by speaking, and I had to go back and sell insurance to companies, and then I was very good at it, but I didn't love it. I didn't love it, and something was happening. I started to just get really not motivated. I started to get almost bitter because I wasn't enjoying myself at my work. And then what happened, I had a chance to become a broker. So I used to work for the insurance company. I had a chance to become a broker on the other side of the table, where I could actually present my ideas, and the clients would actually buy from me. And it was really a good thing, but it was the same thing that happened. I started out really great, and then I got to this point, and then I plateaued. It was no different than what I was doing before. I didn't love it. I was really good at it, but I didn't love it. Can you relate to that? How many of you are out there at a job that you don't love, but you're really good at? You have a family, you're providing for your family. That was me. I was dying inside. You understand what I'm saying? I was dying inside. And I didn't understand what was causing that death. It was a slow death. And it was like, oh my God. And you know what? You know when it came about? For me, it came about when I would have a friend, either a friend or a mother or father of a friend of mine, and they would pass away. And I ended up going to their wake and to their funerals. And I ended up just having to do a lot of soul searching. And when I was soul searching, I would be asking this question: there's got to be more to this life than what I'm doing over here when I sell insurance, and I'm really good at it. And I know I'm serving people, but it was just something was missing. It was like there was a hole in my being. I just wasn't being fulfilled. I wasn't impacting the world. I wasn't impacting the people in a real serious way. I would have conversations when I would go to a barbecue or to a party or to wherever I was, and I would have deep conversations with people, and I love that. I love that. And you know what? When I finished my book and I launched that and people would buy my book and they read it, what I was shocked at was a lot of people bought my book, but they never read it, or they never read it all the way through. Because you know what my book was doing? It was making them look in the mirror. And when they looked in the mirror, they didn't like what they saw. They put the book down, they put it on the coffee table, and that was all it was. And I said, there was an empty feeling because I wasn't helping someone really and truly find their purpose in life. What were they there for? Because here's the questions. Why were you born? Why are you on this planet? What is your purpose? And I would discover those questions when I would go to someone's funeral. I would actually look at myself and say, hey, if I get to the end of my road, and COD is one of my favorite characters. That's your checkout date, by the way. When you get to the end of your life here on earth, did you do what you were supposed to do? Did you have a purpose that God gave you that put on your heart? Were you able to accomplish that? And I just had this burning answer inside of me that was saying, no, I wasn't touching people. And I'll never forget the day this happened. One of my insurance clients and one of my speaking clients grabbed a hold of me and grabbed me by the arm and said, Matt, you're going to sit down with me and you're going to teach me about writing your cornerstone values. And I said, you know, I talked to her and I said, you already have my book. You read it. She said, I read it, but I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I want you to sit down with me and do this. And I sat back. I rolled my eyes. I remember I rolled my eyes. I said, really? I've got to do this with this person? I just thought I was going to hate this experience. So I set up the appointment. I come to this little coffee shop, and this woman and I get together. We sit down, and we start to go over step by step. I started holding her hand, and I walked through chapter 11 of my book, which is all about the cornerstone values. What is it that you really, write down in detail what it is, who's the ideal person you want to be in your career arena, in your family arena, in your physical arena, in your mental arena. And I started to do this with her. And I was just getting into it. As a matter of fact, she was getting into it. And then I looked at my watch and I thought, oh my gosh, there's something wrong? This watch says that we've been sitting here for over 3 hours. And I said, what just happened? And she looked at me and said, I don't know, because time was disappearing when I was doing this. And I looked at her and I said, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I've just touched the inside of my soul. I just began to feed my soul. I had the first time experiencing this thing called feeding your soul. My entire career of 35 years, I was really good at what I did. I provided for my family. But I didn't feed my soul when I was doing it. And when I did this with this woman, I sat down and time completely disappeared. And I sat back and I said, oh my goodness, what just happened? So I started to pay attention to the things that I was doing where time completely disappeared. And I was shocked at what was happening, because it wasn't happening when I would do my insurance practice. It was happening when I would do my speaking. It was happening when I was doing my one-on-one sitting down and coaching different people. And I started to pay attention to that. And when I started to pay attention to that, all of a sudden things started happening in my world. People started coming into my world. People started reaching out to me and they wanted to hire me to help sit down with them and do their cornerstone values. And I sat back and I said, oh my goodness, I think this is why I'm on this planet. And guess what happened? What happened was my purpose, my reason for being on this planet came and found me. When that woman sat me down, I rolled my eyes. I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. And all of a sudden, when I started doing it over here, my purpose emerged and it came and found me. I turned my attention and said, that's it. And whenever I would touch that, time completely disappeared. So what I started to do, I started to chronicle all these things. I started to write down what were the things that were happening. What did I do? What were the specific things I did that allowed my purpose to find me? What were the specific things I was doing in my environment that was allowing me to set the stage so that my purpose for why I'm on this planet was going to emerge and come and find me? And I learned that it wasn't something magical. It was literally something that you could just systematize. It was something you could do, and I had a formula to it. And I was starting to do it, and I started to bring it up to people over and over again. So what I ended up doing, I ended up creating an online course that gave you the 3 main things you have to do that. And then I'm writing the 15th anniversary edition of my first book. And I'm just so excited because what's happening is I've just chronicled the things that have worked for me, that helped me to feed my soul. I saw a movie. I ended up seeing this movie from Pixar. It's called Soul. And I recommend every single one of you watch this movie. If you're resonating with anything that I'm saying during this story that I'm telling you, my video, my story, I want you to get this video called Soul. And it will rock your world, because it rocked my world. Because we all have this thing in our head. We think this is why we're on this planet. I love doing it. It's just what it's going to be. And usually it's something totally different or a different angle on it. It's not exactly what we think it is. And it really it was connected to, and that's why this video you're going to watch, this show, this Pixar movie called Soul, it has to do with what would happen if someday you're about to die, or you're going to die, or you do die. And you get a replay, and you get to come back to Earth, and you get to figure out what is it that I'm supposed to be doing. And then you finally figure out that it wasn't what I thought it was, but it was closely related to it. And I got to tell you, so if anything that I've talked about right now is resonating with you or have resonated with you anywhere in your career, in your path, I want you to send me a direct message, DM me, and write the word soul. S-O-U-L. Write the word soul in there. And then let me know. I mean, if you want to have a conversation, I would love to have a conversation with you. And in the conversation, all I want to find out is, can I help? Can my journey help you at all? Is there something that I could bring to the table to you that would help you to figure out, why are you on this planet? What is your purpose for being? What is the reason you were created? Why were you born? And if you're looking for and searching for that, I got to tell you, there's some things that we just can't have a conversation. So please DM me and let me know that it's something that you would like to have a conversation, and we can just have a conversation. So I really appreciate you listening. It's a little bit of my story. It's an ongoing story. It hasn't ended yet. And when I say that, meaning that I'm just beginning to touch this thing called feeding my soul. And every time I do anything that is about or around, surrounding, helping someone else figure out why they're on this planet, I'm feeding my soul. My spirit goes from here up to here. My spirit just flies. And I know that's available for each and every one of you. So thank you for taking the time. And this is Matt Barafato, the Purpose Hunter. Until we talk next time. Thank you.